welcome to Kensington Church. My name is Greg, and we have such a fun day planned for you. If you braved the snow, you can see that we have, hey, look at that spiral. Did you play QB? Is that?
Back in Pee Wee.
In third grade. All right, you did it. You did it. Well, we have a great day planned for you. We're celebrating Super Bowl Sunday, but so much more than that, too. Thanks again to all of you who like and share our content online. You really are a part of our mission to share our message of love and hope and restoration all over the world. Well, we do have a great Sunday. We've got Patrick Holden giving the message, and we've got Ryan and Carrie and Therese leading the band today. So hang on, because it is going to be an incredible day. Let's get started. Hey, yeah, no, that was fine. We did it out here for the hustle and bustle.
A king is born. I told you before. A king is born. Well, I told you before. A king is born. Like a beast in the jungle, in the heat of the rumble, I ain't got nothing to lose. I've been fighting these hard times in the ghetto with my mind. Now it's victory that I choose. Yes, my soul is blessed, the king is born. My mind confess I'm a bad, bad man. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. I've been down so long and my crown ain't gone, it's twisted. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend, legend. Like a bull in a glass house, no bull but to smash out. Can nothing stand in my way. I don't care where the place is, from the penthouse to pavement. Better hear what I say. Yes, my soul is blessed, the king is born. My mind confess I'm a bad, bad man. No one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. 'Cause I've been down so long and my crown ain't gone, it's history. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. King is born. I told you before, yeah. King's been broke before, but I've never been broken. I am the truth, now the truth is spoken. A king is born. Yeah, king is born. Yeah. Oh yeah, ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. I've been down so long and my crown ain't gone, it's history. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. King is born.
Awesome job. Thanks, Carrie. Hey, and welcome to Kensington Church. We are so excited that you are here today, and we're so excited that you braved the weather. I mean, this is a little nothing, just a little snow on the roads, but you guys made it, and you're going to be glad that you're here with us today. We really have a fun service planned for us today. Well, my name is Greg, and I have the pleasure of being on staff here at Kensington Church. We'll be together for about 70 minutes today, and if it is your first time, an extra special welcome to you. And we have, you can go to startingpoint.today, and you can fill out a little form. You can pull out your phone, and you can do it like right now, startingpoint.today, and you can just get that conversation started of how you can be involved here, how you get to know this church a little better. Well, Patrick has an amazing message, and the band has more exciting music for us. But before we get started, just one thing more to put on your radar is we have a render service coming up in a couple weeks. And how many have been to one of our render services? Yeah, quite a few of us. And so many of us haven't quite been there yet, and I think everybody that goes is just blown away at just the spirit and how powerful these services are. It's a worship service, so there's music and there's a message. We take communion. We gather in the student room across the hall, so it's a little closer together, but I really invite you to come on February 21st at 7 p.m. for our render service. Well, one other thing, while you're walking in, you saw these cards on your seat, and if I could get a little help with my basket out here. We got our prize basket. All right. Let's give it up. Thanks, dude. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, Skylar. Skylar does a really good job for us. Hey, so we have this amazing football gift basket. So you can enter to win when you fill out these forms. So don't worry about it right now. Patrick will lead you through that later in the service. But just know that the prize is awaiting you if you fill your card out today. Well, to get things rolling, we have a really fun element with a video just really celebrating volunteers. So I'd love you to take a look at the screens.
Well, welcome everybody to the very first Kensington Volunteer Combine, the volunteer draft just a few weeks away. This is a very big day for hopefuls.
That's right, DC, especially for those on the fringe. Today is super important. They need to make a good showing if they have any chance of being drafted. Now, DC, what's most important to the Scouts?
Well, Jane, strength, quickness, good decision-making, and, of course, heart is important. We got our first contestant on the course right now, Brian. Brian is an usher hopeful. You can see he's making some really sharp turns through our stanchion cam. You can see that. Look at that time, 7.552. Anything under 8 seconds is actually considered pretty good time, so that's a good run.
Good job. Up next, we have Barbara. She's got grit and determination. The pouch is in the air. Go.
Barb's got good form, too. She is very focused, you can tell, running through this course quickly. And look at this, really a great time.
All right, 6.911. That is great. That guarantees a first-round spot. No way Barbara's going to be fumbling that pouch, DC.
No, I don't think so. Barb really gave it all. But I want you to watch the slow-motion cam here. The stanchion cam really shows this style. 2 hands on the pouch. That's really an important thing to do.
That's it. That's the key.
No fumbling the pouch if you're using the two-handed method. Our final contestant here in the usher category, Toby. Now, you can see Toby is already struggling a little bit. Part of that could be from the recovery from the super glue accident this summer.
Yep.
But his dexterity is getting better. And let's see how Toby does here. He looks a little tentative taking that first turn.
There he goes.
And coming on through with that next. Oh, my goodness. Toby did the thing you absolutely cannot do, and that is he dropped the pouch.
2 hands. That's key.
Yeah.
Well, that really
you can see that
jeopardizes his chance for the draft there.
You can see that and he is not happy and certainly disappointed, but sorry, Toby, the buck stops here, buddy. All right.
Well, listen, we've got the nursery worker contestants up next. It's the dirty diaper drill,
That's
okay?
Right. Yeah.
Each volunteer will be timed, and they must be clean in the end.
Rachel's up here first here, and she is really working hard. You can see she's got the wipe out because, let's face it, no mom wants duty on the booty, Jane. So she's cleaning. Look at that. Hands up quickly. Wow. 10.173. But wait, hey, hang on a second.
Oh, I can smell it way over here.
Oh, I can too.
That is gross.
Yeah, there's duty on the sleeve. That is not good, Jane.
Man.
You know what they say, cleanliness is next to godliness, and so that's probably going to eliminate her.
Well, there's Michael, and Michael, you can tell he's brash and sometimes overconfident, but he's got lots of talent. Let's see how he does.
Well, he quickly moves into changing the diaper here, and looks like he is off to a great start. I think this is going to be a super time.
Wow, that is great. 7.16, beating out Rachel.
And Michael Well, Michael seems to be very happy with the job he's done, but unfortunately, he's going to get a 5-second penalty for excessive celebration, Jane.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's not good.
On to one more event, everybody, and these days, safety is on everybody's mind. This drill challenges the security team to stay focused, and there we have Blake.
Yeah, Blake is an imposing
and
dude.
Katrina.
I mean, yeah, he could give a tough go for the ultimate warrior there in wrestling.
That's right, and she's about like Ronda Rousey, isn't she? They're both sporting yellow, too, DC.
Yeah, that means caution. You don't want to mess with these two. Don't poke the bear.
Can't be fickle when you feel the tickle, you two.
Yeah. Blake seems to be breaking down a little bit here.
There. Okay, yeah. Katrina, congratulations.
Katrina doing an excellent job. That's the kind of security we are looking for. Well, overall, it's really been a great day here at our first Kensington Combine. All competed at their very, very best, and this should make for this year's draft a very interesting one. We want to say thanks to everybody and tune in next time.
Wow. Bet you've never seen that in church before, have you? That's pretty great. Hey, real quick, that was Jane and DC Cavender. You guys give it up for them. They did a fantastic job. We are so glad you're here, and if it's your very first time, welcome. And it's been great. Hey, today's Super Bowl, and we like to have a lot of fun on Super Bowl Sunday here. So every year we kind of make a really big deal out of it. And then I would just say this, props to you guys for getting here throughout the snow. How many of you were you were looking at your husband the whole time praying for him on your way in? Anybody doing that? You were just praying, nudging him a little bit? That's great. Anyway, we're so glad that you're here. And then to those of you who are volunteers, we just want to say this. Thank you so much for all that you do. I was really reminded of that this morning. We were coming in, and at 5:30 this morning, we had volunteers here working on the sidewalks, and, is it shoveling? That's what we call it. Yeah, shoveling. Working on that. Yeah, anyway, so it's pretty great, and they were just doing an awesome job. And then for those of you who are K-Kids volunteers, after seeing that baby, we just want to say thank you especially to you, and you win all the free baskets today. I think you should do that, so it's pretty great. Hey, today what we're doing is we're going to be talking about what great teams look like, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to be a part of a great team and how we can do that. And so that's really what the message is going to be about today. But before we jump into that, I want you to do this, if you would. There's two things I'm going to ask you to do. I'd love you to go ahead and stand up, and then I'm going to ask you to do this. I want to ask you to give 3 or 4 people around you a high five as you're standing up, and then tell them or ask them this question: who are you going for tonight at the Super Bowl? Right? Who are you going for tonight at the Super Bowl? Get up. 3 or 4 people around you, high five. Who are you going for tonight at the Super Bowl?
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now, we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today, and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan. This is Carrie. This is Therese. We're going to lead you guys in a song this morning. Put your hands up like this. Come on. Sing it out. Waking up knowing there's a reason. All my dreams come alive. Life is for living. With you, I've made my decision. Let's sing it out. You lift me up. You lift me up. Fill my eyes with wonder. Forever young in your love. This freedom's untainted. With you, the moment is wasted. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white. Turns the color all around. All is new in the Savior I am found. Come on. This is living now. Let's sing it out. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white, tis the colors all around. All is new in the Savior I am found. All right, one more time, as loud as we can. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white, tis the colors all around. All is new in the Savior I am found. Come on. This is living now. This is living now. You take me higher than I've been before. It's your perfect love that sees me soar. God, your freedom is an open door. You are everything I want and more.
All right. Hey, thanks for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. And again, so glad that you're here. As I said a few minutes ago, what we're doing is we're going to be talking about great teams and how to be a part of that. Before we jump into the talk, I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward, and we're going to go ahead and receive our offering. And we say this every week, but I just want to again say thank you so much to those of you who partner with us and that you give here at our church. We're so thankful that you're all in with us. Everything that we do here is really kind of made possible because of people just like you who contribute to our organization. And there's a few ways that you can give at our church. Actually, there's 4. You can give on our app, you can give on our website, you can give through text, or you can give in the amazing blue pouches that are making their way through right now. Online giving is probably the easiest way to do that. You can always do that right on your phone or right on your computer as well. But again, thanks so much for being a part of what we do here at our church. Now, because it's Super Bowl Sunday and because I think football players with high-pitched voices are really funny, what we're going to do in the next couple of minutes is we're going to show you a really funny video. And what it's going to do is it's going to highlight a couple of football players that you've probably seen before. But it's also going to highlight some individual players who are star athletes and talk about a little bit what it looks like to be a part of a team. So let's watch this video together.
You like my sister?
Yeah.
Well, don't.
Just give it a second. You'll see it.
Look at my golden hair.
Called that, didn't I?
Hey, I'll flip for you. Yeah, I'll flip for you. This wall is magical. You can't touch me.
My neck.
You play for the devil. I got books on the shelf, but who reads?
Yeah, I hear you.
Your books are terrible. My gland scraped a pipe. I never said who pushed Dad.
Gertin. When you die, I'll be outside.
Your tongue is ashy.
I don't think that's possible.
Yo, dog, it's so dang ashy. It's ashy. Dude, it's ashy. It's ashy. Somebody took the nickels out of my dang locker. You hear what I said? Every one of you guys is now a suspect, okay? Smurfs. You'll pay for this in Odin's name. I normally can't go outside. What is up, my friend? You know what's so funny? Tattoos. I want to go find a feather bed.
How you feeling?
I'm probably dying. Hey, where's my car tires at? Y'all took my car tires? Need my car tires back. Hit it. Lariki. I got something to tell y'all. Hey, who are you going? I want to dance across the earth.
How do I wash this neck?
Your boyfriend's a good citizen.
I accept that I'm big, okay? I get it. And then Mulder said, hey, listen, Scully, hey, no, I found the aliens, and you don't care. I say, no surprises. You'll find me in the test center.
I'm gonna watch you wash.
Hey, just laugh if you're mad. Just laugh if you're mad.
I swallowed a penny. Why a penny? Why a penny went that deep? Why, man, why?
The pain is enormous.
Whose skull would you like?
Protonic battle shields are cool. Bargain. Hey, I forget, where do we get lambs? Sheep?
Yeah.
Oh, what about deer? Happy Sidewalk Day. Hope your sidewalking's happy. I like to pull the wigs on waitresses. Most skeletons are harmless.
The wicked Sherpa is deaf.
Go to church, and go to church.
Wow. So like tonight as you're watching the game, you're going to be thinking about that video the whole time, aren't you? It's pretty great. Hey, I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Patrick, for those of you who don't know, and if it's your first time. And we're excited that you're here. And we like to have a lot of fun in church. So if it's like you're coming to church for the first time, we just believe that you can do that, which is, again, why we play videos like that. But today what we're going to do is going to be a little bit different message, and some of you are going to get really excited about this, because what we're going to do is we're going to assume that we're kind of like in a football game for these next few minutes. Can we do that? We're going to format it in 4 different quarters, which means I'm going to be on a timer. Anybody excited about that? Yeah, our entire staff is, I'll tell you that. Okay, kids volunteers are like, it's about time. It's great. So, so what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 little quarters. We're going to have a commercial break in 2 of them, and then we're going to have a halftime show for you here in just a few minutes, which I think is going to rival Justin Timberlake's tonight. But again, we're going to be talking about teams over the next few minutes. So to get us going, let's go ahead and start the timer. So we're going to do 8 minutes on the clock. Can we get 8 minutes on the clock? And we're going to see how I do with this. Do we have that? Can we throw up the 8 minutes? You guys ready for this? All right, I'm already rolling. All right, so today what we're doing is we're talking about great teams, all right? Now, here's what I believe about great teams. Here's what I feel like, have seen and experienced in our lives, is when it comes to great teams, we all have seen them, and there's something inside of us that loves to be a part of them as well, right? We all love watching and being a part of great teams. In fact, we can say it this way: the great teams are always fun to watch, and they're fun to be a part of, right? That's just kind of how great teams work. Even if you're like in Little League, how many of you played like Little League football stuff or baseball? Anybody out there, you do that? How many of you coach your kids' Little League team? Do we have any coaches? And you get a little bit amped up every time something goes wrong? How many of you are that parent that gets a little amped up? Anybody? How many of you are married to that parent? Don't do that. Don't do that. Right, but there's something about, you're like, oh, he didn't say that. Great teams are fun to watch, and they're fun always to be a part of. And I feel like in Michigan especially, it's fun to watch and be a part of great teams. And you've probably watched some of Michigan's best teams. So let's talk about this one. Anybody remember 1998 Red Wings? Anybody out there? Do we have any hockey fans? Yeah, you watch these games. And then there was the 2008 Michigan State Spartans. Anybody remember this? Yeah, you do. That's great. Yeah, that's great. I'm always waiting. I don't know if you remember this, but my first Sunday here, Nick played the Michigan theme song. Do you guys remember that? And I didn't know what it was. It was great. All right, but we're past that. We're beyond that. But the Wolverines, right, they are pretty good as well. Do you remember this? Right, when they won the championship. How many championships does Michigan have again? Anybody know? Off the top of your head? How many? More than State. Woo! And then she, exits the building quietly. That's great. And then back in 1957, long before we even had colored printing, anybody remember this? The Detroit Lions, ladies and gentlemen, won the national championship. That's great. How many of you, real quick, weren't alive during that time period, right? There's still hope, people. There's still hope. Now, we like to think about this in terms of sports teams, am I right? So we think about teams and sports teams all the time, but this is also true when you go to work, right? I think one of the best teams that I've ever loved to watch and would have loved to be a part of was this team right here. Anybody remember this? Yeah? We got fans of The Office, and I would want to be a part of this team even if Jim Halpert weren't on it. There's something about it where we love great teams, and I think it's true of where you work. I also think great teams are true in our homes as well. And so some of you are really excited about the football game, but some of you are excited about watching this team tonight, right? Anybody excited about watching this? Yeah? How many of you are more excited about watching This Is Us than the game? Leave your hands up. That's fantastic. Yeah. Crock pots. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so we're excited about this, and I think in your family, you need to think about great teams and being a great team. In fact, before Emily and I were married, one of the most helpful things that anybody ever told us is they're like, hey, you need to realize that even now, being engaged, but eventually you're going to be married, and that's the most important team you're ever going to be a part of. And so we actually, from that time on, we started referring to ourselves as Team Holden, right? We have a hashtag, whatever, because we want to view ourselves as a team because it matters that we think about it that way. So we all have seen great teams. We've all wanted to be a part of a great team, and I think that's incredibly important. That every single one of us wants to be a part of an extraordinary team. That you want to run into the office every single day and not only feel like you love where you work, but you want to feel like you are winning where you work. You want to feel like you're doing something significant where you work. You want to feel like being a part of an incredible team at the office is actually happening. Right? Some of you know this, that when it comes to your home life, if you're married or you're in a relationship, you've seen this and you've experienced this. There are times where you feel like you're winning in your marriage, and then there are times where you're not winning in your marriage. And you don't want to run home if you feel like your team is not winning at home. There's something about that that's extraordinarily important in our lives. And I would say this is true in our relationships as well. or you have a group of people, you have a group of relationships, you have a group of friendships. And if you thought about it as a team, like together you're holding each other accountable, you're holding each other towards a standard, you're helping each other grow and move forward, and those teams are just as important and just as significant as all the others as well. And you have to figure out, how do I interact with those individual teams that are in my life? So the question that we're going to talk about today is pretty simple, but the question is this, right? Are we currently a part of and contributing to a great team, right? Are you a part of and contributing to a great team? Now, we think about it in those areas, but one of the areas that we like to talk about around here, and we're going to tell you this here in a few minutes as well, but one of the teams that I think is most important in your life that you will ever be a part of is being a part of a team like in a local church. And the reason that we talk about it at a local church like this is because there's a lot of things that you're involved in that at one point or another it will end with you, right? Like when you die one day, or 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, if we figure out all the genetic stuff, just kidding, all that sort of thing. There will be a day where your life will end. And the things that you're a part of, some of them will die with you. But what we've seen over, thousands of years now is that the local church always lives beyond us, right? That there will be a day where the local church continues to move forward and continues to move on, and you will play an incredible role in terms of passing on faith to the next generation. You'll play an incredible role of building something in this mark in time that has the potential to impact a community. And even if you're not a follower of Jesus in the room, here's what I would say to you, right? Even if you don't agree with Jesus or religion at all, or even if you're adverse to some of that, what we could all come around is this, that when healthy organizations, right? When healthy organizations or when healthy churches or when healthy nonprofits come together, there is an extraordinary impact that can happen in the community when people come together on mission to see a city become better. When people are united around an idea that we can go do something significant and something important together. And what I would say to you, no matter what life stage you're in, no matter what area of life you're in, no matter what you have going on in your life, right? Being a part of a team that impacts a community and impacts the city, and being a part of a team that will live far beyond you, is one of the most important decisions that you can ever make. And if we come into our lives, right, if we come into our lives and we walk through our lives, I know this is tough to say out loud, living primarily for ourselves, as we're going to talk about for a few minutes, or if we live primarily for the things that feel like most close to us, but we don't live for things that beyond ourselves, I think at some point or another you're going to wish that you would have done something that lived beyond you. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a few tensions around that. We're going to talk about how we do and how we manage those kinds of things in our hearts and in our lives. And we're going to talk about what it looks like to be a great team player within any one of those facets of our life, right? Now, before we do that, look, I did pretty good. We got 42 seconds left. That was amazing, right? So we've got a few seconds left on the clock. We've got a commercial break, so we're going to show you a couple of commercials today. One of them, or both of them, are going to kind of point towards our next series. And then we're going to come back here in just a second. What we're going to talk about after that commercial break is how we can move forward and what the tension is in terms of not being a part of a great team. So I got really close, but we're going to go ahead and go to that commercial break if we can. So let's watch this commercial together.
If you don't get up, no sex for a year. Want to make it 2?
I'm not sure how you come out of that. That's pretty incredible. And the reason is because nobody tells you that in marriage counseling, but it's true. Right, all right. So we're starting a brand new series coming up soon called It's Just a Phase. We're going to tell you more about that, but we'd love for you to be a part of it. All right, so as we're coming back on this, the question that we're looking at is, are we currently a part of and contributing to a great team? right? Are you a part of and contributing to a great team? Or are you a part of something that's significant? Now, what I want to push on for the next couple minutes is when it comes to your work life, right? Statistically speaking, most people who are sitting in this room either don't feel like they're part of a great team, right? Or they don't feel like they're contributing fully to the team that they're a part of, right? So Gallup is an organization that talks about a lot of like studies and what it looks like and surveys and really gets under the hood of some organizational life. And we've shown you some of these statistics before, but I think this is so incredibly impactful as we talk about this, right? So let's talk through a couple of these statistics. In the United States, 45% of the United States workforce would say that they are not engaged, right? Are not engaged in what's happening at work. Now I want you to think about that just for a second, right? 45% of everybody who drives into the office, right? Or they work wherever they're working remotely or whatever that is, right? They find themselves not engaged at work, which means that they show up day in and day out. They show up and they may do their job, right? Statistically speaking, this is interesting. The attention span of somebody at work has continued to decrease in some ways connected to technology, right? If we were really honest, right, don't raise your hand and don't shout out of time, but how often do you find yourself on your cell phone or on a computer looking at social media during the workday, right? And that's not guilt, that just is, right? We just find ourselves constantly distracted. I talked to a guy recently, and he had figured out a way to set up Netflix on his phone, so he's got that running the whole time that he's working throughout the day and just binge watching shows. And I was like, does your boss know this? He's like, no. And I'm like, I'm glad you don't work here. You know, like that sort of thing, you know? And there's this thing where we find ourselves distracted. And I think part of the reason that we find ourselves so distracted is we're just not engaged, and or we don't believe that what we're doing is significant, and that we don't believe necessarily that we're part of a great team. Now, the second stat I think is even more fascinating. And if you were to take this second stat, multiply it out, you know, in terms of all the people that work in our country and what's happening in a typical Monday or Tuesday kind of environment, I think this is incredible, right? 26% are not only not engaged, but they're actively disengaged at work. Now, think about this for a second, especially all of you who are managers. Think about this. 26% of the people, right, in America would say not only are they not engaged, but they're actively disengaged. I am purposely ensuring that I am not engaged in what I'm doing. And I think that's a huge stat. Because when you think of the amount of time and the amount of resources, the amount of dollars that are spent on people who are not only disengaged, but are actively disengaged. I'm going to figure out a way to occupy or fill my time. I'm going to make sure that I'm not doing the thing that I was hired to do. I'm going to continue to be actively disengaged. I think in some ways that might be a leadership problem. And that might be a foundational problem that we have in terms of being a part of a team or a part of being a great team. Like there might be a foundational issue in the way that we view our contribution to where we are and what we're doing. And as leaders, for those of you who are managers in your company, I think there's also a problem with going, are we inspiring people to do extraordinary things? Are we coming alongside of people and saying, hey, you are part of something that's bigger than yourself? And then there's a survey done by HR Dive that I thought was so incredibly fascinating. And most of us have heard variations of this statistic before, but I think it's interesting. 75% of turnovers are preventable. Now, when you look at these two stats, it feels odd to say this one. But I think what they're getting at the heart of, and as they interview people, as they talk to people, is a lot of this is a leadership thing. That managers and leaders in our country are also in some ways distracted, also in some ways disengaged from what they could be doing. And in some ways, they've broken trust with the people that they're leading. And then the people who are actively a part of the team have broken trust with the managers and leaders because of the way that they've responded to some of these things. Now, in every single great team that we look at and admire, the foundational principle to all of it is trust, right? You think about this in terms of your home life and the moments where you feel like there's brokenness or it's not moving in the direction that you want it to, or you're not experiencing the kind of family situation that you want to experience. And the friendships and relationships that you have, this thing is always so fragile. But if you're going to think about your tribe or the people that you spend time with or your, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning friends, whenever trust is violated, it's so hard to get it back. It feels like you're constantly working uphill. But I think trust is connected to a set of actions, but it's also connected to a deeply rooted character trait very few of us are born with, and that most of us have to develop and work at. That if trust is the foundation of great teams, then the foundation of trust for me is a character trait that we have to consistently develop. And it's a principle that, again, you can apply or not apply if you're a follower of Jesus. And I think in some ways you can see and reap the benefits of what happens when you become a person like this. But at the heart of great leaders and at the heart of great team leaders and the heart of great managers and the heart of great, people who work on these teams, there's two things, and it's this. Is that trust is built on consistent honesty and is built on genuine humility. Consistent honesty and genuine humility. That every team needs people who are going to consistently be brutally honest with each other, right? In your marriage, come on, you know this. At the times when your marriage is struggling the most, your relationship's struggling the most, it's probably because one of you hasn't been fully honest with the other person about either how they're feeling or what they've done, right? And it just kind of starts and it grows and it kind of begins here and then it just kind of gets bigger. On every single team, I think this is true as well. A lot of you have worked for teams where you've just harbored some sort of struggle that's going on. And it's grown to the point where all of a sudden you find yourself disengaged. And as a leader, I would say a lot of this is true as well. Now, come on, one of the most difficult things you can ever do is confront or be brutally honest with people so that it can be for them. But you have to have that honesty. And the second thing is this, you have to have humility to have trust. That you have to come into it open-handed and not thinking less of yourself, but constantly putting yourselves in the position of the people that you're leading and asking the question, how can I be for you in these moments? Because I think being on a team causes us to focus on me. It begins with me. So what I'm going to do in our third quarter in a second, actually in 35 of them, is I want to look at one specific passage in Scripture where Jesus talks about this very thing and what it looks like to be a part of a great team. And then not only that, but to be a part of leading great teams, whether it's in our home life or in our work life or in our relationships. But before we do that, we did plan a little halftime show for you, and we're going to throw it back a few years to one of my favorite bands that's ever played at the halftime show. It's Billy Ray Cyrus. Just kidding, we're not going to do that. What if, though? What if? Halftime show today is going to be brought to you by U2. Let's watch this together.
Heart isn't blue, shoots up through the stony ground. There's no room, no space to live in this time. You're out of luck, and the reason that you had to care, the path that you're stuck, and you're not moving anywhere. You thought you'd found out of this place, someone that you could lend a hand in return for this. It's a beautiful day. Sky falls and feel like a beautiful day. Don't let it get away. You're on the road, but you got no destination. You're in the mud. clearing the sea out. See the bend fires at night. See the oil fields at first light. And see the bird with the leaf in her mouth. After the flood when the colors came in. It was a beautiful day.
Awesome. That's fun. I asked them if they let me do Bruno Mars or Justin Timberlake, and they told me no because they saw my dance video last night. If you saw that, you know that was a mistake. All right, so here's what I want to do over the next few minutes, right? So we've kind of laid a foundation what we're talking about with great teams. And over the next couple of minutes, if you're not a follower of Jesus, what I'm going to say is you're going to look at that and you might say, hey, that's like an ancient thing, or that may not apply. But there's one phrase in the end of this that Jesus talks about that I think is true for every single person. And I want you to think about it over these next few minutes as we're looking at this passage. What would happen if every single person who called themselves a follower of Jesus, or every single boss that you ever had that said they were a follower of Jesus and you were like, I don't know how that lines up, or anybody like that, I want you to think for a few minutes if every single person lived in the way that we're going to talk about. And so what happens is Jesus is really talking to some of his closest followers. He had performed a lot of incredible miracles all over the ancient world. In fact, this is the part of Jesus' kind of earthly ministry where he was in some ways kind of looked at as this famous teacher that would travel and speak to people. And so here's what it says. This is Mark chapter 10. Here's what it says. It says, this is Jesus and some of his closest followers. They were on their way to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. And the disciples, who were those, people that are closest to him, the disciples were astonished. And while those who followed were afraid, right? And there's this angst that's happening because there's a group of people who are frustrated and angry at some of the things that Jesus had done. He's kind of this famous figure in a lot of ways. He'd drawn a lot of attention, and he'd drawn a lot of sort of angry sort of attention from the religious leaders, religious elite, people who were very powerful. And it says, again, he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen to him. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Most of us know what ends up happening to Jesus, but he's about to have this moment with them where he's going to kind of sit them all down and say, hey, just so you know, so we can clarify all the expectations, here's what's going to happen to me soon, right? This is what's coming, and it's not going to be pretty. In fact, if you're watching a Mel Gibson movie with this sort of thing, this is the part where the strings come in, Jesus is there, all these people are kind of leaning in, listening to him. Here's what he says. He says this. He says, we are going up to Jerusalem, he said, and the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, the Son of Man will be delivered over, right? Betrayed, handed over to the chief priests, who were very high and elite religious leaders and even political leaders at the time, and the teachers of the law, right? To be handed over and delivered to those people. And then it goes on, it says this. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles who, now don't miss this, who will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. And then 3 days later, he will rise. Now, I want you to, just for a second, to pretend that you're one of those people who are his closest followers and you're sitting there listening to him. That is an enormous amount of information to take in all at once. That the person that you've been following all over the place for these last 3.5 years, the person that you've seen do miracle after miracle and that has really equated himself with God and called out the religious elite and dropped the mic on people over and over again. He's going to be spit on. He's going to be flogged, which means he's going to be beaten with this, it's like a stick with these leather straps that has glass on the end of it, right? Be flogged, spit on, and ultimately going to die. But just so you know, it's going to be okay because 3 days later, he will rise. Now, that's an interesting thing to say all at once. And if you're one of the disciples, you're kind of taking all this in. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And then we get this very, I think in some ways, humorous part in terms of what happens next. Because he's having this big emotional moment with the strings coming and all these kinds of things. And then James and John, who were some of his closest followers, came to him and they said, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." Now think about this for a second. Jesus leans in and says, "Look, I'm going to die. I'm going to go through all this stuff." And then there's that kid in the back of the class that's like, "Hey, real quick, you're powerful though, right? Yeah. I want you to do for us whatever we ask." Ding. And I feel like Jesus probably looked at those guys and was kind of like Stanley from The Office, like, "You for real?" You know? Like, I feel like that's probably what happened. Because Jesus just goes, "Hey, I just told you that I, being the Son of God, am going to be killed and crucified and tortured. And your response to me is, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." So Jesus responds with this. "So what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you?" And they come back with this. "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in glory." Jesus, give us status in this kingdom that you are establishing. Give us authority. Give us power. Let us lead from a place where we have what you have. Now, I love the next part because it shows the humanity of all of Jesus' followers. It goes on and says this. "And when the 10 heard about this, they became indignant." Not mad, not frustrated. They became indignant with James and John. And so there's this little, ruffling of all the feathers, and they're all a little bit frustrated and upset. So Jesus calls a powwow with all of, his closest followers. And again, he sits them down. He calls them together, and here's what he says. "As you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. They take their authority and they take their power and they lord it over them. And their high officials exercise authority over them." And all the guys are like, yeah, we've seen that. "Oh, yeah, that guy did it, yeah. And he says this, "Not so with you." Then after Jesus opens up about all that's going to happen, he's been talking about this kingdom that's being established on the earth. He talks about his death and that he will rise again from the grave. He pivots it all back around, knowing that he's about to hand over the keys to what would become the local church that would be established and then move through generation after generation after generation all the way to us. And he says, if you want to know how you're going to lead, if you want to know how you're going to be a part of this world, you are not going to be like those rulers. Not so with you. And he says some of the most powerful words, I think, in all of Scripture, especially for those of you who are leaders in the room, and for those of you who work for leaders in the room, those of you who show up at home and are being a part of that team at your house. He says this. "Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all." Now, I used to translate this in my head like they must be last, Like if you don't want to be first, you're going to be last. I had a Sunday school teacher tell me that one time, and so I would go to the back of the line in elementary school, right, for the pizza line. So that's what Jesus is talking about. That's not what Jesus is talking about in this particular passage. What Jesus is talking about is it's not this aspiration to be the one who has the power and authority. It's the one who says, I am going to actively choose to serve those and to approach that, the slave, to all that I am serving. Now, you know this. The leaders that you admire the most, that you love the most, and you follow the quickest are the leaders who come alongside of you, who serve you. I don't want to embarrass the guy, so I won't say his name, but I was at a local restaurant recently, and one of my favorite things is I show up at the restaurant, and the guy at the cashier station is the guy who owns the thing. And he checked me out, right? That's leadership. Now imagine for a second, especially those of you who are non-believers, think about this. If every leader that you had served in the past, especially those who call themselves a follower of Jesus, served in the way that Jesus served or led in the way that Jesus led, that would completely change your perspective on a lot of different things. And then, as if Jesus hadn't said enough, because he says this, he kind of like, again, which I love, drops the mic. And he says, if you're going to compare yourself to people, don't compare yourself to the Gentiles, don't compare yourself to all the other rulers, don't compare yourself to all the other leaders, don't compare yourself to the people who have the authority like that. I want you to evaluate all that through the lens of me. And he turns it back on himself and he says this, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. That Jesus came, and allowed himself to die for all of humanity, to be tortured for all of humanity, to walk into that scenario knowing where it was going to end and says, I am doing this on behalf of you. Scripture teaches us that to be part of a great team, you're really a selfless servant. In fact, what you find in great teams are these people who want to overly serve each other, right? I want to serve you more. I want to serve you more. I want to serve you more. Let me do this for you. Let me do this for you. Let me do this for you. Now, I think we have an amazing team of our staff members. I love our staff. I think they do such a great job. Yesterday, a perfect example of this is we have Super Bowl is one of our biggest Sundays. So you came in through the arch and the balloons, right? All those hundreds of balloons, all the hot dogs. If you haven't got hot dogs yet, because everybody eats hot dogs at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'm going to eat about 10. It'll be great. And so the person who was leading all this had something that came up yesterday in family that, kind of shifted everything and made it where they couldn't come in. And within 15 minutes of finding that out, we're on this group text, and if you read that, you'd be like, I don't know if I want to go to church there. It'd be great. I'm just kidding. There's all these funny memes they show, but in this group text, another one of our team members who has no responsibility over any of that sends out this text message and says, hey, this person's not going to be able to lead that because of a family thing. Can we come around and do this? And so yesterday, a group of people showed up here from our staff to set all that up, all of which had no responsibility towards any of that. And then they got on the horn and got volunteered, like the Nisgodas were here yesterday, blowing up balloons and trying to figure out how to bend those arches because I broke it twice, but, all that sort of thing. And they showed up and made that happen. A lot of it, several of you did. Because on great teams, it's people who serve and serve and serve and outserve one another. That's kind of the goal. Now, I think this is true in a lot of teams, and I think when you look in environments that aren't nonprofit or in the secular world, even in sports, you find this humility thing coming up over and over and over and over again. And there's this quote by a legendary coach who's a basketball coach. His name is Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson has this quote that I think is incredible because it really highlights what we're talking about. Here's what he says. He says, good teams become great teams when the members trust each other. I'm going to trust you to do your job, to know what your job is, to interact correctly with each other. And then know each other, trust each other enough to surrender the me for we. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about the mission. It's about laying down my preferences, laying down my, pride, laying down, the things that I'm reaching for in terms of power, and saying it is about we. Now, I went way over in the third quarter, which I typically would do when I get to the scripture passage, and I knew I would. I'm sorry about that. But I want to look in the fourth quarter about one other thing. I want to look at how we do this for just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to wrap up. I think we have one more commercial for our next series, and then we'll talk about that. Let's check this out together.
Home by midnight.
11.
That's the second time this week. What happened?
All right. So I want to wrap up and I want to talk about this. If you attend our church here, I want to talk to you kind of as if you're family. And if you don't attend or this is your first time, I'd love for you to listen in because I think you're going to get a beautiful glimpse of what we're about here. But if you attend our church and if you come consistently, I'm actually going to ask you today to be a part of something that's bigger than you. And even if you're kind of on the outskirts, and even if you're somebody who's like, I'm not a follower of Jesus yet, but I'm kind of getting there, and I'm kind of curious and at least exploring my faith. When it comes to our church, it is 100% pulled off by people who choose to be here as a volunteer, right? Again, people got here at 5:30 this morning to make sure that the roads were clear enough for you to come up and walk up, right? People got here early this morning to make hot dogs. People showed up yesterday, again, like the Zgodas who were volunteering in kind of the last minute. And it really revolves around our mission statement, right? And our mission is this when it comes to our community, right? Our mission is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. That we want to take this message of who Jesus is and what he taught into every part of our city, right? And it's not just what happens here, but it's in so many other ways. Some of you are Kids Hope volunteers, and you show up in schools once a week to partner with kids. That's a part of what we're talking about. Some of you show up and you go on mission trips all over the world, and you're part of things like that, which is incredible. But I would say if you call Kensington home, right, part of being all in is this, that everyone, right, everyone plays a role to make this place irresistible, right? Everyone plays a role to make this place irresistible, and specifically to people who come to church with the walls already kind of built up, right? Right? If you come to church and you have walls already built up, that's really part of why we exist, is how do we help you come in and with all of your baggage on religion and all your baggage with church and church people and the whole deal, how do we create this place that feels irresistible to you where you can feel like you can come and be accepted even if you don't believe what we believe yet, and that you can process that. On a given weekend, right, I was doing math this week. On a given weekend, it takes us about 223 volunteer positions on the weekend currently, right? There's about 223 volunteer positions at our church on the weekend. Now, when you kind of average that out, when you look at that in terms of hours per week that our volunteers have put in together collectively, that's 892 hours per week that our volunteers put in, right? I want you to let these numbers sink in because they're big, but they matter, right? That means per month, that's 3,568 hours per month that our volunteers show up on behalf of our community to create an irresistible place, right? And that's 42,816 hours per year. Yes, I checked it on Google to make sure I was right. Now, people do this for free. People show up as volunteers. We don't pay you, right? I wish we could. Because if we were to pay you, you would make this every year. $381,062.40, right? That's how much it would cost us to pay the work that our volunteers do every year. And there's no way we could do that, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you if you call Kensington home. Is I believe our mission is so important. I believe what we're doing in the community is so important. I believe being a part of something that will live beyond you is so extraordinarily important. And we have to show up. And you're not showing up for me, and you're not showing up for our staff, you're not showing up for a building, because all of that will pass away, right? This building will not be here one day. I won't be here one day. Our staff will not be here one day. None of that will be. But the investment that we make in our city, that will make a significant impact. The investment we make in the lives of families will make a significant impact. There are thousands of kids and students all over our city that need you to show up on their behalf to make a significant impact. And that does not happen with 15 staff members and a guy with a Britney Spears mic on stage. That's not how that happens. It happens by people who show up in the lives of other people and for other people. And so here's the challenge to you today. If you call Kensington home, right? If you come here consistently, if you come here once or twice a month, right? If you come here and you show up, and even if you're on the fringes, even if you're like, I don't know about the whole God thing or faith thing, we have places for you to serve as well. But here's my challenge to you, right? Is we need you to show up and volunteer consistently. We need you to say, this is important. We need you to show up and say, hey, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to choose selflessness in the other areas, and I have all these other important things that I'm doing. But because of the mission of what we're trying to do in our city, I'm going to show up in our city as well and do something extraordinary. And there's a lot of places that you can serve. I'm going to give you a couple of them real quick. First place is this, right? You can show up in arts, right? That's the stuff that happens up here that they don't let me be a part of. All of the arts and production stuff. There's the other one is just tech and production, right? All the people who push buttons. We have a team called Eyeballs, which is one of my favorite teams that we have. All these guys back here who like serve and move things and bring things out. They get on a lift, which you cannot pay me enough money to do, and they move lights and all this stuff. Right, they're a part of that. We have a whole video suite back there, or people who volunteer and make sure that you see all of that goodness on the screen. And then you camera people, all of these sorts of things are in production. That's incredibly important. And then the other thing around this, which is also interesting that we probably don't talk about enough, but this past year, how many, I don't remember off the top of my head, there's a little over 570,000 video views online since we launched, right? All of this stuff goes online and people watch this stuff online. 37 countries people watch our services, right? Think about that. It's a significant impact all over the world. The other one is this. You could serve in guest services. That's everything that happens out in the lobby. That's the parking team. That's coffee team. Like a lot of this whole crew right here, I feel like serves on guest services, which is great. You have all of that sort of thing, which, those are incredibly important because if I didn't get coffee, the messages would be bad every week, right? So there's all of these sorts of things that we do. Guest service is incredibly important. And then the one that I really want to kind of push you on, if I could, is K-Kids and students. And so I've told you this a couple of times. I'll continue to put it in front of you because I think it's the most important thing that we do. When it comes to K-Kids and our student ministries, we have grown so fast, which is amazing, and we've grown with young families, so we have all of these kids. I don't know if I've ever said this out loud here before, but one of our campuses is 4 times our size in terms of people in the auditorium, and we have the exact same number of kids that they do, which is crazy. Because you keep having babies, which is awesome, And so there's all this sort of thing. But here's what I want to tell you, right? Here's what I want to tell you, right? In this particular area right here, right? Here's what I'd say. Right, if I were to die tomorrow, we would be just fine as a church. Right? If all of a sudden all this stuff goes away, we'd figure that out. This is where we're going to make the most lasting impact. And we need you to show up here. Men, come on, I'm going to tell you. We need men to show up in the lives of elementary school boys. I mean, it's a commitment. I know it's a commitment, but I'm going to tell you, right? Of all of the things that I think you'll do with your life, I think that's one of the most important things that we could ever do. I think if every parent, right, had another adult speaking into their kids' lives, we would see families change all over our city. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You have a card. I'm going to ask you to pull out that card that was on your seat. I'm going to ask everybody to do it, even if you're a current volunteer, and even if you're like, I'm not interested in being a volunteer. That's totally okay. I just want everybody to pull out that card. I think you have a pen there as well. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do, right? I'm going to ask you to select one of those boxes at the top. So even if you're a current volunteer, and even if you're not wanting to be a volunteer right now, maybe that's in the future for you, that sort of thing. I hope that that's not the case. I hope you would consider and try to figure that out today. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at that card for a second, and I want everybody to fill out that card if you would. Now, if you're not interested in being a volunteer, just check the box. Say, you don't have to say anything. Just check the box and say, I'm not interested right now. I would still ask you to do that. That helps us in terms of tracking things and understanding where we are. So check that box if you're not interested. But I hope that everybody in the room either currently will be a volunteer or in the plan or in the future plans to be. And so here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm going to ask you to check one of those boxes. If you're interested in being a volunteer, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Check the box, give us your name, email, and or number, a cell number, whatever that is. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do with that, right? As you're checking those boxes, what I want you to do is give us that information, and then next Sunday, you have 2 options. Some of you are like, I'm ready to jump in tomorrow, like hand me the keys, just give me the t-shirt, let's go do this. That's fantastic. Jonathan, I think he's been attending for like a month, and then I see him out there, and he's already serving, which is great. Like, you can totally do that. I would love for you to do that. And then some of you, if you're like me, right, you're type A personality, you're going to go home, you're going to sit down at Chili's or wherever you go to lunch, and you're going to have a conversation with your wife. She's going to try to talk you into it. You're going to try to talk yourself out of it, or vice versa. You're going to leave here, do that sort of thing. Here's what I'm going to tell you real quick, right? I'm going to tell you, if you want more information, or if you feel like I need to process this more, next week we're doing a volunteer meeting after our 9 o'clock and our 11 o'clock services. And I'm going to be there. We're going to sit down. Some of our directors are going to be there. We're just going to answer questions the whole time, right? That's it, right? Answer any question to give you all the clarity that you can need. So you can come to one of those, and there's free food. So even if you don't plan on serving, you get free food. I've done that before and shown up because I'm a good person. So I would ask you to plan on that. And the last thing I'll tell you is this, right? And if it's your first time and you're visiting, and you're like, you know what? They're just asking me for my money and my time. I totally get that. This is not every single Sunday, even though we do like to do U2 openers. But I would say this, right? Here's what I'd say to you. is over the course of this next week, as you're like considering and thinking about what all this means and what this looks like and what you've heard, I want you to imagine just for a second, no matter what you believe about God or theology or the whole deal, imagine what would happen if 1,000 or 1,500 people showed up and were so focused on mission and we're so focused on our city to make a significant impact. So you got your cards. I'm going to invite our ushers to move forward. They made a really big point for me to make sure I told you this. I'm going to ask you to pass them to your right, which I still have to do this. Your right, pass those cards, even if you like check no or whatever that is. I want you to pass those cards to your right. And then our ushers are going to move forward. We're going to pick up those tabs, and then we'll go from there. So as we're doing that, I want to tell you one last thing, and then we're going to wrap up. Next week, we're beginning a brand new series that we've kind of shown these commercials for. It's Just a Faith. And we're going to be talking about families, and we're going to be talking about what a healthy family looks like. And so before we end our time together, I want to tell you one last thing, is that when it comes to this next series, again, I believe what we do in kids and students is super important. And some of you in the room, you're empty nesters, and I'm going to tell you two things. There's going to be a part of you that's like, if we're talking about that, then I might skip out, right? And I want to tell you two things around that. The first thing is, I think you probably know a young family who needs to be here and will only come if you invite them and show up with them. So I'm going to ask you next week to invite a young family and show up with them. The second thing is this. Some of you, you're empty nesters and you're thinking about this series. What we're specifically talking about throughout this series is geared towards you as well in terms of what it looks like to lead your family from the seat that you're in. So every single week we're going to talk specifically about that. I think it's going to be extraordinarily valuable and helpful to you. And then the last thing I want to say is this. If you're not an empty nester and you're attending, I would say that what we're talking about over the next 3 weeks, even if you're single, even if you're not married, whatever that looks like, right? We all know people who need to hear what we're going to talk about over these next few weeks. So I'm going to ask you to show up next week with somebody or with another family. It's one of the easiest things to make an ask for, because all you have to say is, hey, is your family perfect? No, come with me, right? That's all you got to do, because everybody's with you on that, right? Buy people lunch afterwards, whatever that takes. We'd love for you to show up next week with somebody. So here's what we're going to do to end our time. I'm going to ask you to stand up. I'm going to pray for us, and then we're going to end service right there because I went a little bit over time in my quarters. So I lost a bet this week. That's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. Here's what I want to do. I want to pray for you, and I want to pray for your family. And then again, I want to say this before we wrap up. To those of you who do volunteer consistently and are part of this team, I just don't think we could say thank you enough for creating this place. So let me pray for us, and then we'll wrap up. Father, thank you for today, and thank you for these truths. Thank you for allowing us to have a place where we can have a lot of fun together. And God, I ask that as we think about this next season of our lives and what this means for us, that a lot of us would just become the people that you call us to be, that we would live beyond ourselves and live for something that is greater than ourselves. And God, I pray that you would help us to choose to be the volunteers that you call us to be. You'd help us to live beyond kind of what we're doing in the status quo and become the people that you've asked us to be. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday for start of It's Just a Faith. See you soon.
Make the drawing. Hey, welcome to Kensington Church. My name is Greg, and we have a really fun service planned for you. We're so glad that you're joining us online today. What are you doing? You can see we're in the lobby. We're having a lot of fun celebrating the Super Bowl. We've got hot dogs. We've got balloons. We've got footballs. No, you're good. All right, hey, we got Patrick with the hands. Are you gonna come and join me or what? Okay, hey.
You're watching online. It's football. It's Super Bowl Sunday. So
Yeah,
I've got a
I don't know if
surprise for you.
There you go.
Linebacker, come on in.
What? No, come on.
A king is born. I told you before. A king is born. And I told you before. He is born. Like a beast in an ungo, in the heat of the rumble, I ain't got nothing to lose. Yeah. I've been fighting these hard times in the ghetto of my mind. Now it's victory that I choose. Yeah. Yes, my soul is blessed. The king is born. My mind confess I'm a bad, bad man. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. 'Cause I've been down so long and my crown ain't gone. It's just ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend, legend. Like a bull in a glass house. No bull but to smash out. Can nothing stand in my way. I don't care where the place is. From the penthouse of pavement, better hear what I say. Yes, my soul is blessed. The king is born. My mind confess I'm a bad, bad thing. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. I've been down so long and my crown ain't gone. It's just ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend, legend. A king is born. I told you before, yeah. Been broke before, but I've never been broken. I am the truth now. The truth is spoken. A king is born. Yeah. Oh yeah, a king is born. Oh, ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. Hey, I'm a legend, legend. I've been down too long, but a crown ain't gone. It's just ain't no one like me. Hey, I'm a legend, legend. A king is born.
All right, let's give it let's give it up for the band one more time. That was pretty amazing. We had a horn section. That was incredible. Well, my name is Greg. Welcome to Kensington Church. We are so excited that you are here with us today. If it's your first time, an extra special welcome. You picked a good Sunday, a good fun Sunday to come and check us out. But hey, if you are new and you want to learn more about what we do here at Kensington Church, you can actually pull out your phone right here and right now, and you can go to startingpoint.today. You fill out a quick form, and you get that conversation started. Well, we're going to be together for about 70 minutes. Patrick Holden, our lead pastor, will be here giving the message. Really, we've just got so many fun elements. I'm really glad that you're here and that you braved the snow to come and celebrate together today. One other thing that I'd love to put on your radar is that there is a render service coming in just a few weeks, February 21st. How many here have been to one of our render worship service? Yeah, a lot of us. But so many still haven't given it a shot. It's on a Wednesday night, which is a little bit different, but it is such an incredible time to gather together. We sing just great songs. We actually celebrate communion together. Patrick teaches as well, and we meet over in the student room just across the hall. So I'd really encourage you to take part. You will not want to miss it. Well, to get things kicked off today, we have a great video that we've put together to celebrate football and also celebrate our volunteers here at Kensington Church. Let's take a look.
Volunteer Combine. The volunteer draft is now just a few weeks away, and this is a very, very big day for hopefuls.
That's right, DC, especially for those on the fringe. They need to make a good showing if they have any chance of being drafted. What are the scouts looking for, DC?
Well, they're looking for strength, they're looking for quickness, they're looking for good decision-making, and, of course, most important, they're looking for heart. Jane, I think our first contestant is ready to go.
That's right. Here's Toby. He's made a great recovery from that super... Whoop.
I think it's Brian that's actually up.
Brian, right there.
Yeah, Brian is up. He is making his first run through, and he looks like he's very, very good in his time. 7.552. Look at it. He's doing the one-handed hold. If you look at the stanchion camera there, it really shows that anything under 8 seconds, really, Jane, considered a good time.
Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Barbara up next. She's got grit and determination. The pouch is going up in the air, and off she goes.
Well, she looks like she's got great form, very determined, and we're expecting a good time from Barb. Let's see how she does here. Well, that looks like a fast time, Jane.
Good job. Wow. 6.911 is her time, and that guarantees her a spot in the first round.
Well, she did something very unique. We're going to go back to our slow cam here and take a look at this. She, as you notice when you come through, the stanchion cam will show it. She's using the two-handed method on the pouch.
That's important.
That's a great technique. You do not want to drop the pouch. That's a critical thing, and it looks like she's done well. Well, finally, we have Toby up next. Now, Toby, you'll notice he's already a little having some problems right from the get-go. Yeah, that's probably from the super glue problem he had earlier this summer.
Guy.
Yeah. The dexterity is still not right there, but let's see how he does on this run. Oh, my goodness. That wasn't good. Toby looked like he dropped the pouch.
Oh.
Yeah, that is, unfortunately, that's an automatic disqualification. You can see that there in the video.
He's not happy either,
He's
DC.
being stopped from his run. He's not happy, but Toby, the buck stops here. Sorry.
All right. Well, now on to the nursery worker contestants. It's the dirty diaper drill. Each volunteer will be timed, and they must be clean in the end.
Right. Well, here we are. We've got our first contestant, and boy, looks like she's really moving quickly through this. No duty on the booty. Any mom knows that. So
that's right.
She's definitely got the wipe going on, and she's finished. But I think there's a problem, Jane. Hang on.
Oh. That is gross.
Yeah.
That is gross, DC.
I can smell it here. If you notice in the close-up cam, she has got some on her sleeve there. And let's face it, cleanliness is next to godliness. That is not going to work, Jane.
Well, let's see how Michael does. He's brash at times and overconfident, but he's got lots of talent. Let's see how he does here.
Well, he seems very confident. He's off to a great start. Look how quickly he's getting the wipe and the diaper together. That's a really fast time. Wow.
There we go. His time, 7.176, beating out Rachel.
Michael celebrating, in fact, too much. So I've just got the word he's going to be given a 5-second penalty for excessive celebration.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we've got one more event. These days, safety's on everybody's mind.
Yeah, here it is. Here's Blake. Blake is a big dude. I mean, this guy could go up against the Ultimate Warrior in wrestling. I mean, And then we have
Katrina. Katrina, much smaller in stature, but I hear she's as strong as Ronda Rousey. Well, they're both sporting yellow, too. What's that mean, DC?
Well, it means caution. You don't want to mess with these people. I mean, they are security. So the idea here is to really just hold their form and do not make way to any of
Don't be fickle with the tickle.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
Blake seems to be breaking down. Oh, my goodness. Well, you know, that's the way it goes. Katrina really standing very solid there, and good job by Katrina. Well, overall, it's really been a good day at our very first Kensington Combine, and all competed, did their very, very best. This should make this year's draft a really very interesting one. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Hey, real quick, one more time for Jane and DC Cavender, ladies and gentlemen. So good. That was amazing. Moms don't want duty on the booty. There's a tweet right there for you. Hey, welcome. We're so glad that you're here and you braved the snow. How many of you, wives, real quick, you were praying for your husband as they drove the entire way here? Anybody? How many of you went more than praying and you were nudging them the whole time? Anybody? Yeah, that's great. Hey, we're so glad that you're here. Today is obviously Super Bowl Sunday, and we like to have a lot of fun. And I know the 11 o'clock crowd is the fun crowd. Is that right? Are you the fun crowd? Yeah, one more time. Are you guys the fun crowd? Yes, you are. That's fantastic. And so we've got a lot of fun surprises in store for you today. It's going to be great. We're going to sing a few songs here in just a minute, and then we're going to be talking about great teams over the course of today. So it's going to be a fun day. Before we jump into all that, here's what I'd love you to do. I'd love for everybody to go ahead and stand up. Go ahead, stand up. Give 3 or 4 people around you a high five. Ask them this question: are you a Tom Brady fan? There's a question. Are you a Tom Brady fan?
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now, we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
What's up? My name is Ryan. This is Carrie. This is Therese. We're going to lead you guys in a song this morning. You guys want to get your hands up like this? Here we go. Waking up knowing there's a reason. All my dreams come alive. Life is for living. With you, I made my decision. Come on, sing it out. Lift me up. You lift me up, fill my eyes with wonder. Forever young in your love, this freedom's untainted. With you, no moment is wasted. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white. Tis the color all around, all is new in the Savior I am found. See, this is living now. ready to sing. So good to be with you. Like I said earlier, my name's Ryan, and this next song we're going to lead you in is called King of My Heart. And the whole crux of this song is really to kind of get towards the why behind why we're here, behind why we sing, behind why we do any of this. It's really to focus on Jesus, who is the author and the perfecter of our faith. So maybe you might be someone who's kind of far from God or just figuring out the whole church God thing. Just want to encourage you, let these words speak to you. Just read them. Feel free to reflect on them. And then if you are a follower of Christ, I encourage you, man, let's just belt it out together and just be an example to those around us for who God is doing, what God's doing in our lives. Let's sing this together.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, so good. Oh, you are good, so good. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. King of my heart, be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, so good, Jesus. Oh, you are good, so good. Oh, you are good, so good.
All right, let's sing this together as loud as we can. Oh, you're never gonna let me down. Come on, let's declare it. You're never gonna let me down. Oh, we sing. You're never gonna let me down. Oh, we sing. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. No, no, no. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. No, no, no.
Thanks so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. I want to say this. If you're here and it's your first time and you're like, number one, that girl can sing. I agree with you. Number two, is she great? Yeah, I do a great job. Number two, I'll tell you this, is that part of the reason that we get so excited around here about the songs that we sing is because they hold in them these very deep truths about what we believe about ourselves, and that's that we are very broken people. That no matter where you are on the spectrum of faith, no matter what you believe about God, the one thing that's true about every single one of us is that we can't figure it out on our own. There's this brokenness inside of us. For some of you, it's small, you feel like, or some of you, it's really big. But you're here today, and most of us are here today at some level trying to explore faith and trying to figure out what does it look like to try to figure out what spirituality looks like in our own lives. And as a group of us that just feel like, for us, that Jesus is really the answer to that. And so that's why we get so excited when we sing some of those songs. So today, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering. I want to say for those of you who are here and you call Kensington home, we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this place and thank you for giving. I say this pretty consistently, but I feel like the only response from us is just to say thank you so much for being a part of what we do here. Everything we do, both locally and globally, is made possible because of people just like you who give. And so we're able to see, which is incredible for me, all over the world we partner with these global partnerships. Over 500,000 people are impacted by the ways that you give and the way that all of our churches give at Kensington, which is an incredible thing to watch and be a part of. And then locally, we're able to do so much, again, because people like you give generously and you give above and beyond. And so there's a couple ways to do that. If you've never given here, you can give on our app. You can give on our website. One of the easiest ways is to text and to give, or you can give in these amazing blue pouches that come by. I'm still trying to figure out another word for pouch, but we're still working on that. So you can do that as well. Hey, today, obviously with it being Super Bowl Sunday, we're talking about teams. We're going to be talking about what it looks like to be a part of a great team. But because it's Super Bowl Sunday, we have to look at ourselves as individuals. And so when you think about football, right? Do we have any football fans in here? Football fans in the house, right? Do we have anybody? Somebody told me the other day, like something about like what real football is, and they were talking about soccer. Is there any of those people in the room? Leave. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's great. I'm teasing. I'm a soccer fan too. She's upset. I promise. We're good. Hearts. Yeah. No, it's great. So for us, we're going to be talking about what it looks like to be a part of a great team over these next few minutes. But because of that, and because we're going to look at ourselves individually, I thought it'd be fun to look at some brilliant commentary for some amazingly, talented and professional football players, and look at what it looks like to be a part of these teams in their own words. So let's check this out together.
You like my sister?
Yeah.
Well, don't.
Just give it a second. You'll see it.
Look at my golden hair.
Called that, didn't I?
Hey, I'll flip for you. Yeah, I'll flip for you. This wall is magical. You can't touch me.
My neck.
You play for the devil. I got books on the shelf, but who reads?
Yeah, I hear you.
Your books are terrible. My gland scraped a pipe. I never said who pushed Dad.
Gertin. When you die, I'll be outside.
Your tongue is ashy.
I don't think that's possible.
Your dog is so dang ashy. It's ashy. Dude, it's ashy. It's ashy. Somebody took the nickels out of my dang locker. You hear what I said? Every one of you guys is now a suspect, okay? Smurfs?
You'll pay for this in Odin's name.
I normally can't go outside.
What is up, my friend? You know what's so funny? Tattoos. I want to go find a feather bed.
How you feeling?
I'm probably dying.
Hey, where's my car tires at? Y'all took my car tires? Need my car tires back. Hit it. Latinky.
I got something to tell y'all. Hey, where are you going?
I want to dance across the earth.
How do I wash this neck?
Your boyfriend's a good citizen.
I accept that I'm big, okay? I get it. And then Mulder said, hey, listen, Scully, hey, I found the aliens, and you don't care.
I say, no surprises.
You'll find me in the test center.
I'm gonna watch you wash.
Hey, just laugh if you're mad. Just laugh if you're mad. I swallowed a penny. Why a penny? Why a penny? Why a penny went that deep? Why, man? Why?
The pain is enormous.
Whose skull would you like?
Protonic battle shields are cool.
Bargain. Hey, I forget. Where do we get lambs? Sheep?
Yeah.
Oh, what about deer? Happy Sidewalk Day. Hope your sidewalking's happy.
I like to pull the wigs on waitresses.
Most skeletons are harmless.
The wicked Sherpa is deaf.
Go to church, 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 and go to church, church, church.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the entire game tonight, you're just going to be hearing those voices in your head. That's going to be great. Hey, my name is Patrick, and I probably should introduce myself earlier. I'm the lead pastor here. Today what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun. And again, the 11 o'clock crowd is the fun crowd. Am I right? There you are. So we're going to do this. We're going to break up the message now into 4 quarters as if it's a football game. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah, and our staff, they're like, hey, there's no way that you're going to stay within those quarter time limits. So we're going to see. Do you guys think that I'll be able to do it? Yeah, you're all wrong. So it'll be great. I'm kidding. We're going to do it. So there's a little bet going on. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see a timer come up. There's going to be 4 quarters, and we even got a halftime show planned for you. So it's going to be a lot of fun over the next few minutes. So let's go ahead and start that clock. Can we get the clock started? All right, here we go. 8 minutes on the clock. That's how long I have for the first quarter. Today what we're doing is we're going to be talking about great teams. All right, we're going to be spending some time talking about great teams. Now, here's the truth for every single one of us, I think, in the room, is that ultimately when it comes to great teams, we all want to be a part of a great team, don't we? Like, we've seen great teams, you know great teams. We all have, like, these ideas of what those are like in our head. And we could say it like this: that great teams are ultimately fun to watch and to be a part of, right? Now, I want to think, because we're in Michigan, I want us to think for a few minutes about some great Michigan teams. So let's just start right now with 1998 Red Wings. Any Red Wings fans out there? You remember this? Yeah. It's a big year, pretty great. And then let's look at this one. This is the 2008 Michigan Spartans. What are the Sparty fans out there? Fantastic. And then I would be like, I think I would probably get fired if I didn't talk about the Michigan Wolverines. Anybody remember this team right here from the 1990s? Yeah? Pretty great. Yeah, it's amazing. And then do we have any Lions fans in the house? You admit it. That's great. That's fantastic. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's awesome. So here's the great thing about the Lions. I'm new to the whole, Michigan thing, which is great. But I don't know if you remember, but in 1957, the Detroit Lions, back before colored printing, I don't know if that's true, but it's fun to talk about. Yeah. How many of you, real quick, were alive back in the 1957, real quick? Yeah. How many of you were not alive back then? And how many of you still have hope? Anybody? Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. My staff's like, yes, that's great. I love it. Yeah. So, right, you got the Detroit Lions. Now, when it comes to teams, we all have like sports teams that we're attached to and connected to, and we think about great teams oftentimes within sport teams. But I think when it comes to teams, you see these in a lot of arenas and a lot of areas of our lives, right? One of the other teams that I think you see this at is at work, right? A lot of you know what it's like to be a part of a great team at work. And if I had to choose, there's one team that I would love to be a part of, and that is this team right here. Anybody join me on that one? Right? Yeah. You'd love to be a part of it because you want to get to know Jim Halpert, right? I mean, that's just kind of how that works and, the whole deal. And then there's a whole set of you in the room, which I'm kind of excited about, that, you're going to watch the Super Bowl because it's what to do, but you're not excited about the Super Bowl. You're excited about the team that's going to play after that. You're excited about this team right here. Anybody excited about that? Yeah, you are. Yeah, that's great. There's like 9 of you, and then the other of you, you're just crying because of crock pots, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, now here's the whole thing about this. I think great teams happen, right? Great teams happen on the sports field for sure. They happen at the office. They happen at work. But I think great teams also happen at home, right? Before Emily and I got married, we were engaged. We had a couple that had really been investing in us, and they told us this. They said, of all the teams that you're going to play on, the most important team that you will ever be a part of is the team that you're on at home. And so they did this. We started doing this. We just called ourselves like Team Holden from that day on, right? Because of all the teams that I'm a part of at work, all the teams that I love, all those kinds of things, right? For me, the most important team that I'll ever be a part of is the team at home. And this is true because all of the principles we're going to talk about today, all of the principles that are connected to sports teams in a lot of ways, still apply in your most important relationships, don't they? Right? They still apply to like your tribe or your closest group of friends, right? You need each other. You challenge each other. It applies at home. In some ways, it applies to parenting. All of those kinds of things apply to all of the teams in our lives. And as I said earlier, right, the thing I know about you, no matter where you are on the religious spectrum, is that everyone, right, every single one of us wants to be a part of a great team, right? You want to be a part of a great team when you walk into the office, right? Come on, be honest. You want to run into the office every single day, but oftentimes you don't feel that kind of angst and excitement, right? But we all want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. We want to be a part of a great team that's winning at work, right? How many of you, if you're really honest, and not that you're at that job now, but you've ever been a part of a team at work that was not winning? Anybody ever been a part of a team at work that's not winning, right? And you know this, right? It can be a great thing, it can be a great job, but if you're not winning at work, right, you don't run to the office. You don't get excited about that, right? Same sort of thing is true, I think, at home, right? When there's tension with your spouse or there's tension in the relationship, you don't, run home, right? You sometimes you just sit out in your car before you go in. You're like, I'm not even sure, you feel some of those kinds of things in your heart and in your life if things aren't right with your home team, right? So I would say this is true in our relationships, it's true in sports teams, and it's certainly true at the office. And the question that I want to look at for a few minutes is this question. Are we currently a part of and contributing to a great team, right? Are you a part of and contributing to a great team? Because a lot of us, if we're super honest with where we are, we want to be part of whatever these great teams are. We envision what it could be like if we were part of these great teams, but we don't necessarily contribute in the ways that make us a valuable part of the team. And sometimes we live our lives in a way where it's like we just don't feel that excitement or that we're winning in those environments of our lives. And I think that's sad, right? In fact, for me, as a pastor, I believe with all my heart that God never wanted you to wake up and hate going to work, right? I don't think that was God's plan for your life. I don't think God ever wanted you to wake up for seasons of your life and not want to run home to your spouse. In fact, when it comes to your friendships, I don't think God's plan for you is that you would constantly have tension or you would feel disconnected from people or any of those things. Ultimately, what I believe is that God wants us to be a part of some of these great teams, but not just be a part of them, right? I think he wants us to contribute in a very specific way to these great teams. Now, here's one thing that I'm really excited about is I'm currently 1 minute and 52 seconds ahead of schedule. Are we excited about that? Because I just won the first bet. What? All right, so what we're going to do at each one of our quarters is we're going to break it up with a commercial break. Are you guys cool with that? And the commercial break that we have set up for you is really pointing to the next series that we have. And this next series that we have coming up is one of the most important series that I think we'll do all year. It's for every person in here who's from an empty nester all the way to high school students. We're going to be talking to every single person about this specific thing. Before I give away too much, let's watch this commercial together with 1 minute and 18 seconds left. What?
If you don't get up, no sex for a year. Want to make it 2?
Things they don't tell you about in premarital counseling, right? That's pretty great. Yeah, so we're doing a series called It's Just a Phase starting next week. We'll give you one more little clip about that before it's over. But it's going to be a fantastic series. We'd love for you to join us for that. Now, let's pick up from where we left off about talking about teams. All right, we said this. Are we currently a part of and contributing to a great team? Are we currently a part of and contributing to a great team? Now, I want to take just one area of your life. We talked about work. We talked about the office. I want to focus in on that area, and I want to look at statistics around it. Now, we've talked about some of these statistics before, but that was a great word. Statistics before. I just stopped speaking in the middle of it. It was great. Statistics before. But within that, I think these are incredibly important because we get a snapshot of this one area, but I think the same truth applies to most of the areas in our life. So these stats are from Gallup. It's a fantastic survey, polling company that looks at really the engagement of people at the office. Now, here's what they said, right? Gallup said this, that 45% of the U.S. workforce is not engaged in their work, right? 45% of the U.S. workforce is not engaged in their work. Now, what that means, right, is that they drive to the office and they get to the office, when they get there, and the work that they're a part of, the culture that they're a part of, the leadership that they're under, isn't inspiring them to do something extraordinary, right? That you wake up and you go and you kind of, check your time off, or you work remotely and you do the thing, but at the end of the day, your heart's just not in what you're doing. You're slightly disengaged from all that is going on in all of those areas of work. Now, I think that's a fascinating thought when you think about the number of time, or the number of hours, the time, and the level of dollars and the resources that go towards people who are not fully engaged in their job. Like, just think for a second, how much time and how much resources are lost, but not only that, think about if that 45% completely changed and all of a sudden 45% more people were fully engaged at the workplace. Can you imagine what would happen in our country and our world if people showed up with a mission and a purpose to do something extraordinary? Now, the second stat I think is even more fascinating because it gets more at the heart of where people are, especially in our culture. 45% of the U.S. workforce is not engaged, but 26% is actively disengaged, right? Now, this is an amazing stat. 26% of the U.S. workforce would say that they are actively disengaged, which means you go to the office and you sit there at your desk, and not only are you not engaged in the work that you're doing, but you also binge watch Netflix the entire day, right? That you figure out how to actively occupy your mind with things that are not what you're producing at work. I had a friend of mine recently, we were talking about work and the whole deal, and he actually does that. Like, he'll sit at his computer desk all day, get enough done to say that he got enough done, and he sits there with his cell phone on Netflix, and he really does just watch shows like all day. And I remember he was telling me about this, like, what do you think about that? And I went, well, I'm glad you don't work at our church. I was just excited about that. Because in my heart, I'm just going, not only are you disengaged, but you're actively occupying your mind with things that maybe don't really even matter, Now, you take this small microcosm of your life, because work is one part, but it's not all of the sections of your life. And you look at this principle about being disengaged or, unengaged, and you think about actively being disengaged. Just think about how much of our lives that we're wasting by not being a part of a great team. Now, the last stat, I think, speaks really to leaders in the room, right? Or aspiring leaders in the room. Because I think it gets after the way we manage and the ways that we look at what we do with the people that are part of our teams. We would say this, and this is from HR Dive. I think this is fascinating. 75% of turnovers are preventable. Think about this for a second. 45% is not engaged, 26% actively disengaged. But they're going 75% of that could be preventable with leaders who inspire in powerful ways. With leaders who paint such a clear picture for what the future could be and your role in it, that you could do something extraordinary. That sometimes people are actively disengaged or not engaged because they don't feel like they're a part of something that is bigger, or they don't feel like they're a part of something that is winning. And what ends up being broken when that isn't a part of what's going on is that trust begins to be broken. And when trust is broken, the whole thing begins to be crumbled down. In fact, we say it this way: the foundation of a great team is trust. Like, you have to trust the people that you're working with. And beyond trusting them to say they're going to get the job done, and beyond trusting them to say, like, they're not going to tell your secrets, but trust them to know that you've got one another's back. And that you're going to do something extraordinary together. And that you're going to do your part, and I'm going to do my part, and together we're going to move towards a mission that is bigger than ourselves. And when you find that, you find something that is extraordinary in our culture. But that trust is built on two things. It's built on these things. It's built on consistent honesty, and it's built on genuine humility. Consistent honesty, which means this, that I'm willing to have a hard conversation with you, whether it's, good or bad, or no matter how you take it, but I'm willing to confront when I need to confront. And I'm going to have genuine honesty with you. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, right? And I'm going to tell you my thoughts. If there's brokenness in a relationship, I'm going to go after the brokenness. And then there's the genuine humility. And this is the part that I think is so fascinating. It's the humility that says, I'm going to serve you and continually serve you over and over and over again. And I'm not going to be only thinking about me. I'm not only going to be thinking about my goals in life or, the trajectory of where I'm headed. I'm going to be thinking about us. Not just you, but us. Together, where we're headed and what it looks like. Which means to be a part of a great team, it doesn't begin with you pointing to all the other people that frustrate you. It doesn't begin with you pointing at a boss and if he would or if she would or if they would, I think being on a great team, right, we can say it this way, begins with me. It begins with me looking inward and figuring out what needs to happen in my heart and my life and what needs to shift and change so that I can contribute and be a part of this team in the best possible way. 1 minute left. Score. So, now it's time for our halftime show, right? So we've got a little halftime thing. We're going to pick up, and when we pick up, I want to look at one biblical principle that really focuses on what we're talking about. Before we do this, I need you to do one thing for me. I need everybody to take out their cell phone. Can we take out our cell phones for just a second? Everybody take out your cell phone. Everybody go ahead and do that. And then I need everybody just for a second to go ahead and pull out your flashlight on your cell phone. Can we do that real quick? Everybody pull out your flashlight on your cell phone. Let's do that. That's fantastic. And then shine it up here at me. Can we do that? And then I'm going to ask you to stand up. Can we all stand up for just a second? Go ahead, stand up, stretch out, because our U2 halftime show today is brought to you by my favorite band, Billy Ray Cyrus. Just kidding. Brought to you by my friends who are covering a U2 song. Let's check this out.
Heart is blue, shoots up through the stony ground. There's no room, no space to rent in this town. You're out of luck, and the reason that you had to care, the traffic is stuck, and you're not moving anywhere. You thought you found out of this place, someone you could return for love. It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like a beautiful day. Don't let it get away. You're on the road, but you got no destination. You're in the mud,
time. Give it up for this band one more time. All right, you can sit down and you can put your flashlight down. Some of you are like, my battery's dead now. Come on, guys. Come on. All right, so we're continuing on. Now we're in quarter 3. This is my favorite quarter. What we're going to do over the next few minutes is talk about a biblical story that connects to what we're saying today. And if you're somebody who's not a follower of Jesus, that's totally okay. I'll say over the next few minutes, you're going to argue with me in your head, and you might be right. That's okay. Argue with me all day long. But here's what I would say. I want you over the next few minutes just to imagine what would happen if every boss who said that they were a Christian, every Christian who said that they were a Christian, every person that you've come into contact with actually lived the way that Jesus teaches over these next few verses that we're going to look at. And imagine if every team that you were a part of had this thing as the foundational principle and the premise that it was by. And what would your life look like, and what would the lives of the people that you were serving with actually look like? Now, let me give you a little bit of context. The passage that we're going to look at today, Jesus is going to teach to some of his closest followers. In fact, he's going to pull them aside and teach specifically to them. But this isn't really the height of Jesus' fame in the ancient world, right? So there was a point where he was kind of living in obscurity for a long time, and then there was a point where he kind of blew up as this teacher and was seen as like a healer in the ancient world and doing, miraculous things. Crowds of thousands of people would show up to listen to him teach. And then all of a sudden, the religious elite, and there was a whole other group of people over here who thought they had it together and looked at him and thought that he was wrong and was a heretic and was saying terrible, blasphemous things about God. And they began to plot to kill him, right? And so this is at the point where Jesus is famous, and in some ways he's subversive, and he's kind of dividing the lines between a certain group of people. And what Jesus does and what he says next is going to be extraordinary, because he's going to lay the foundation for every great team that would follow. So here's what it says. Mark chapter 10, we're going to look at verse 32. It says, they, being Jesus and a large group of people and then his closest followers, they were on their way to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. And the disciples were astonished, right? So this large group of people were astonished at all that he had done. And while those who followed were afraid, right? This is being some of his closest group of people. So this is like where you would have this famous person that you had given up much of your life to follow, and it felt like the foundational parts were kind of falling away, right? And it felt like I'm giving my life to follow you, but all of a sudden some people want to kill you, and we're kind of like hiding out in moments, like what's going on? That's the context of this. It says, again, he took the 12, which were his closest followers, aside and told them what was going to happen to him. Now, most of us know a little bit about this, but, just in case you don't, what's going to happen next is Jesus is going to die, and he's going to be tortured before he dies. And he's going to die in one of the most brutal ways that a human being could die. In fact, Romans in the ancient world had perfected this torture and execution thing. They made it slow and agonizing, and Jesus knew what was to come. And so he's about to talk about what is to come, and here's what he says. He says, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man, talking about himself, will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law, which is that religious elite that was kind of looking at him, ultimately wanting him dead. And it says this, and they will condemn him to death, and will hand him over to the Gentiles. Now, here's where it gets graphic. Who will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. And then 3 days later, he will rise. Now, put yourself in the shoes of one of his closest followers. That is a lot of information to take in after lunch, right? Like you're sitting there, listening to this leader that you followed, this teacher that you followed, seeing him do miraculous and amazing things. And he goes, I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to die. But not only that, I am going to rise from the grave. And you're kind of just sitting there with your, sandwich going, that's a lot, Now, the way that Mark accounts these moments is so fascinating because you have this emotional moment where if Jesus were in a Mel Gibson movie, the strings would come in at this part, and everybody's emotional. And these grown men should be tearing up because our leader, he's going to die and he's going to, be tortured. What Mark says next is that two of the guys who didn't seem like the most intelligent of the two, right, of the 12, speak up after this is said. They're sitting around him. Jesus says, I'm going to die. The strings comes in. And then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him and they say, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Which I feel like Mark wrote this and then just started chuckling. Like, how dumb are they, Think about it. Jesus says, I'm going to die. I'm going to be tortured. They're going to spit on me. And then I'm going to rise from the grave. And there's that kid in the back of the class that obviously wasn't listening. Hey, real quick. Will you do for us whatever we ask? And the way that I like to think about Jesus is that sometimes he could be a little bit snarky. Maybe that's just in my brain. So I feel like Jesus then looks at them like Stanley Hudson from The Office and just kind of rolls his eyes, right? Like, I feel like that's what happens next. Now, I could be wrong, but, the Greek. I'm just kidding, right? So I think that may have been what happened next. He's like, no, you're kidding me. Look, that sort of thing. So Jesus responds back to them and says this, what do you want me to do for you? What is it that you want? And they replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Let us share in the glory and the authority and the power that you will hold when this new kingdom is established in our world. That if you're going to die, we want authority in this kingdom. Now, I love the response next because it gets very middle school girlish, right? These two say these things, and then it says this. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. They got angry. They were frustrated. They started writing notes with gel pens. It was a big moment at that time. 90s children all got that. That was great. And it became such a ruffling of the feathers that Jesus then calls them all back together. And here's what it says. Jesus calls them together and says this. You know that those who are regarded as rulers, all of those other people that you're pointing to as leaders and the rulers of these teams, right? Regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, lord it over them. They take their power, they take their authority, and they lord it over those who follow them. And their high officials exercise authority over them. They take their power and they leverage it for themselves as rulers. They take their power and their might and their authority and they leverage it for themselves, but not for the other people that they're leading. And the next 4 words that Jesus says is the foundation, I think, for all of leadership. It's the foundation for any great team. It's the foundation with any great team member. What Jesus looks at them and says is this, not so with you. That you will not be those who take their power and garner their influence and use it on your behalf. That you will do something different. Because it's with you 12 that I'm going to build the church. And you will not lead it in the way that you have seen. In this new kingdom, you will lead it differently. And then he says this. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And then he's going to get after imagery that in some ways really knocks at their heart. He says, you're going to be their servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. And I love this, because if they're listening to this, everything they had seen is leadership garnering power and influence that's used on behalf of the individual.
and teams that are forcefully led by fear and power and manipulation. Jesus says, no, if you want to be first in this kingdom, then you are a slave to all. And I feel like at that point they'd have been like, well, this was fun. Thanks. And they leave, you know. But in this new kingdom, there's not space for that because the work is so important. This gospel message spreading all over the ancient world through people who would give their lives over and over again was that important. That these men who listened to Jesus' words in this moment had no idea what was to come, but what was to come was that they would lay down, many of them would lay down their lives as well. Not for themselves, but for others, and for this message that was to go all over the world. My favorite thing about reading what Jesus says is that Jesus tends to make statements where he drops the mic and then walks away, you know? Like he's just so brilliant in the way that he teaches. And I think Jesus knew that like us and like these followers, that their immediate response would be like comparison to other people. If I do that, but what about? And they would work if they did it, you know, or they led this way, so it must, you know, they would start comparing to what they had seen. And so what Jesus says next is essentially, you're going to be tempted to compare yourself to all the other people. But I'm only going to give you one person to compare it to. And that's going to be me. And he says this, for even the Son of Man, even me, did not come to be served. In fact, pushed that away, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That when you are tempted to garner influence and garner power and to scoop all that up on your behalf, and when you're tempted to be slightly dishonest to get personal gain, and when you're tempted to look at your life and all the things of your life and say, you know what, I can't do that or I shouldn't do that because of where, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, when you're tempted to focus on you, Jesus is saying you turn the tables and you focus on others. And you know this. The people that you quickly want to follow are the people who get in the trenches with you. I was at a restaurant recently with a friend of mine, and he owns the store. And he's at the checkout counter checking me out. That's servant leadership. It's when people come alongside, they say, here's all of the influence, all of the power, I set it aside, and the reason that I set it aside is so I can leverage it all for you. And it's when team members say, I've got all this stuff, but I'm going to set it all aside for our team. Now, I think we have an incredible staff team here. I love our team, and they model this so much. But I was getting ready to talk about this, obviously, today, and then yesterday, one of our team members, or Friday, I guess, one of our team members who is responsible for really everything that you saw when you came in with the balloons and the hot dogs, and I already had a bunch of the hot dogs, but you know, the hot dogs and the Coke and the water and the blow-up stuff, all of this. This is a big day for us. Something happened in their family, they weren't able to, you know, to kind of do some of that. And then one of our other team members who had no responsibility in any of that today, who had no responsibility really even this morning, gets on like our group text thread, which if you saw would just be an enormous amount of memes that you would make fun of us for, but she gets on that group text thread. And she goes, hey, and she tells a little bit of the story. She goes, I'm going up to the church to start working on some of this stuff. We'd love for you to come. And so I'm kind of watching this because I like to be like the last person that responds. See, what is everybody going to say? You know, I'm kind of scrolling through. And within like 10 minutes, the vast majority of our team had responded. And they planned to show up yesterday to work hours to blow up balloons. We had one guy and his 2 kids that are 5 and 6 years old placed the things on every single chair with the pins just right. And he's a little bit anal, which I love, so the pins were just right, you know. They blew up hundreds of balloons yesterday and tied them all off, which I feel like he deserves a raise for that, you know. A whole other set of people showed up yesterday to put it all together. And then they got on the horn and started talking to some of you and like volunteer, hey, can you come and help? And then yesterday we had like 25 people here who showed up on behalf of the team member who wasn't able to be here. And none of the people who showed up had any responsibility on it. We had one guy on our team.
I won't say his name. I don't want to embarrass him. He's vacuuming in the kids' hallway because the guy who's responsible for vacuuming was cleaning the floors in another part of the building. None of that was their job, and all of that is what Jesus is talking about. It's this, I'm not going to be in it for me, but how can I serve you? And how can I serve you? And how can I serve you? And it starts getting like almost annoying, you know. How can I serve you? 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 You want to know what marriage is like? Ready? Like, go home, right, fellas, and assume that you are the powerful one and the authority of your home, right? Everyone's out here preachers like, well, you should, you know, man of the house. I'm like, try it. How's that go, you know? Jesus teaches mutual. That's just me. All right, anyway. Now try this. And I'm going to lord authority at home, and then in the same breath say, I love you. And then you sleep on the couch. It's great. No, I'm kidding. You know what marriage is? Jesus teaches this. It's, how can I serve you? How can I serve you? How can I serve you? Babies, how can I serve you? How can I serve you? How can I serve you? The healthiest marriages are people that are most deferential, who get what Jesus is saying here. Because great teams are about selfless servants. Now, we talk about it in church and spiritual world and families, but there's also a team. There's a coach who's a basketball coach, won national championships. I mean, amazing stuff. His name is Phil Jackson, right? Coached the Bulls through a lot of the Bulls, you know, being famous, that sort of thing. And he has this incredible quote about teams that I think fits so well with this. Here's his quote. He says, good teams become great teams when the members trust each other enough to surrender me for the we. Isn't that good? The good teams become great teams when the members trust each other enough to surrender the me for the we. Now I'm going to take away all my preferences, all my stuff. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to be a part of the we. Now, I don't even think I got close to 8 minutes in that quarter. So I lost the bet. But we're going to do one more quarter. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about what it looks like to live beyond yourself here in just a second. We got one more commercial break about this next series, and then we'll wrap this up here in just a second. Let's watch this together.
Home by midnight.
11.
That's the second time this week. What happened?
Have any parents of teenagers? Yeah, you're going to want to come next week. It'll be great. All right. So continuing that series, it's Just a Phase starting next week. All right, so I want to say one last thing. All right, today, we've been talking about great teams. I think everything that we've said today applies to all of the areas that we've talked about. But I think there's one area in particular that applies in our hearts here. And that's what we do here at the local church. And so for those of you who call yourself, you know, like I go to Kensington's, you know, kind of our home base for church, that sort of thing. What I want to do is I want to tell you one thing about our church, and it's very specific to you as a person who attends, right? We have about 15 staff members that are here. What we do on the weekends has very little to do with our 15 staff members. In fact, I tell our team all the time, our primary job for people that are on staff is just to set up volunteers well. Right? That's really what we do. We show up to try to set up volunteers well. And that's because we believe this when it comes to our city, right? We believe that our mission is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus, right? Now, when you think about that statement, our goal at the end of the day is that we take this message of Jesus all over the world, but we take it specifically to this city, and that this city is a better place because we exist within it, right? I believe that if every local church kind of took that posture and said, hey, we want to make this city better, it's not what happens in all these walls. It's not what happens, you know, up here. It's definitely not happens with a guy with a Britney Spears mic. It's not that. What happens is when you go out and you are the people in our city that become the church, right? And it's what happens when you create a safe place for people to explore their faith here. And it's what happens when you say, hey, I'm going to take the next generation so seriously that I'm going to give them my time, I'm going to give them my resources, I'm going to show up on behalf of them. And when we do that, what we find is this, right? we find that everyone plays a role to make this place irresistible, right? This morning, you may or may not know this, but around 5:30 this morning, there was a group of people who showed up just to shovel, that's what we call it, shovel, I don't do that a lot, shovel the walkways here. 5:30 this morning, people showed up to begin shoveling that. All throughout the day, there's been people out there with mops making sure that you don't slip and fall or look like an ice skater. You know, that happens here. Right now, as we speak, there are about 40 people who serve on our greeter team and our usher team that are counting. They made sure that they were high-fiving you, and when you go out into the lobby, they're going to give you hot dogs, and they're going to be walking around with these chip baskets that I don't understand how we made, but they're going to do that so you have a great experience, right? Every single weekend, there are volunteers that start at about 12 years old all the way up to about 70 years old that serve on our production team. And they get here about 6 o'clock in the morning, yes, including the middle schoolers, and they show up to make sure that everything turns on, and they don't let me touch any of it, which is great. There are people serving right now back in our truck, we call it the truck, that make sure all of this video stuff happens, and then make sure that we're able to put this online for the hundreds of thousands of video views that we get on Facebook every year. And there are people who make sure that we go into our community and we serve in powerful, powerful ways at things like Safe Harbor, right? Things where we are able to give back to our community, and that's all because of volunteers that are part of this. Now, I want to talk just about the weekend and your experience here, because if you're like here and you're kind of on the fringe and you attend once or twice a month and you're like, that's, you know, I would say I go to church at Kensington. You may or may not even be a follower of Jesus yet, but I want you just for a second to understand what it looks like here. At our church on a given weekend, we have 223 volunteer positions every single week, right? 223 specific positions of volunteers every single week. When you multiply that in terms of hours, it's about 892 hours per week that volunteers show up collectively to do something extraordinary here. When you look at that for the month, that's 3,568 hours per month. And then the fun one is you look at it per year, that's 42,816 hours per year that are volunteer hours that make this church happen. And we don't pay you anything, which you know already, right? But if you were to pay you minimum wage to see all of that happen, our church would spend about $381,062.40 a year on the labor that it would cost to have the volunteers that we do. And there's no way that we could ever pay that. Which means what happens on a weekend happens because of you. And the way that we make this place irresistible, again, is not from guys like me. In fact, I say this all the time, right? I could disappear tomorrow. I could die tomorrow. We would all be fine. Some of you would be like, score. You know, I'm just kidding, right? We would all be fine. We would all be fine, right? I would get replaced quickly. You know what would happen, though? Is if our volunteers didn't show up, this place would just disseminate. If this building went away tomorrow, I want you to think about this. If the building went away tomorrow, we didn't have a place to meet, but we had volunteers that still showed up in the lives of kids and students in our city, we still change the world. And that's not connected to me. That's connected to people just like you who said, I'm going to be selfless with my time, and I'm going to choose to be a part of something that is bigger than me and will live beyond me. So what I want to do over the next couple of minutes is talk to you specifically if you call Kensington home, right? The great thing about our church is over the last year and a half, we've grown in some extraordinary ways. I don't think I've actually said this yet from the stage. Maybe I have, but our church right now, in terms of kids, has the same number of kids as a campus in the Kensington movement that is 4 times our size in terms of the auditorium, right? Because we get all these young families and they keep having babies, which is great. We're pro that. That's awesome, you know? But we have a lot of kids that show up here. And we have more kids and volunteers than we need. And the other thing that's great is we know this from our survey, we did a couple weeks ago, about 46% of you have been attending our church less than a year. About 26% of you have been attending, 2-3 months, something like that, which is incredible. And you're kind of on that fringe thing, and you're the reason in a lot of ways that we exist. But we're accomplishing that mission in such a rate that we need some of you to step up that have been sitting on the fringe and to volunteer to continue to make sure that this place is irresistible for the thousands of other people that we believe are going to attend. So what I'm going to ask you to do today, for those of you who aren't currently serving, is I want you to consider for a few minutes serving, right? All right, now, there's a couple places that you can serve, and I want to walk you through a couple of these places. The first place is you can serve on our arts team. That's anything that happens up here on the stage with singers, playing U2, all of that kind of stuff, band members, the whole deal, all the stuff that they don't let me do. That's a great opportunity for you to do up here on our stage. The other one is this, tech and production. I mentioned this earlier. One of the most amazing things about our church is there's a significantly, exponentially wider audience of people that watch us online consistently. And over 30 countries, people watch us, hundreds of thousands of video, all these sorts of things, which is amazing. And that's specifically at our Traverse City campus, which is incredible, right? But that takes tech and production people who do that. I told you about iBolts, the team that gets here really early. There's people who do video stuff. Right now, there's 2 video operators that are making sure that I show up on whatever this big screen is, and that's odd and cool at the same time. That really matters, and it's important, right? It's one of the best things I think you could be a part of is that production team. The other one is guest services, right? If anybody's ever high-fived you at our church out there, it's probably one of the guest services team, right? In fact, I would say this, that most of you who attend our church did not attend because of a message or because of the music or because we did a U2 song. You attended because somebody showed you to a seat and someone made you feel comfortable when you got here. That's our guest services team. One of the most important things that we do is there. And I talk about this a lot, and I always probably get slightly emotional when I do, but that's K-Kids and our students, right? So I'm going to tell you this, right? Because of where we are right now, we have grown so fast with our K-Kids department that we have outgrown the number of leaders that we have, which is great. It's a safe environment for sure, but our goal is 100% to partner every family with a small group leader who walks these kids through a season of their life, right? That's my ultimate goal. In fact, I mean this, tomorrow, if I wasn't here, that would be fine. But what would not be fine is if we don't take our full investment into the next generation. I think that's the most important thing that we do, and I hope that's what we're known for in our community. And that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of students who don't attend church, and thousands and thousands and thousands of kids who don't hear a consistent message of the gospel, and I don't think that's the way that it should be. And I'm going to tell you, fellas in the room, all the guys, for a second, right? Some of you have been on the fringe and I'm thinking about, should I not? I'm going to tell you this. We need men. We have elementary school boys who need men to step up in their lives. Right? Growing up through elementary, that was me. We have a ton of single families that attend our church where dad's not in the home. And yet men are the most difficult thing to get in elementary school. And I get it, but I'm going to tell you this. I need some of you fellas to step up into that world and come alongside and be a mentor to a couple of these guys. Because at the end of the day, I think that's going to make the most significant impact that we'll ever make in our city. So, I'm going to ask you to do something today, right? So when you came in, I think you got a card. I think it's on your seat. I'm going to ask everybody to pull out the card, even if you're currently volunteering, and even if you're not interested at all in volunteering. I'm going to ask everybody to pull out this card for a second and the pen, just for a second. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Again, even if you're a volunteer or even if you're not interested in volunteering, I want to ask you to pull out that card, and I'm going to ask you to mark one of those boxes up top, right? So there's a box that says, I'm not interested in volunteering at this time. That's totally okay. I would love for you just to mark that on there. That helps us to be able to track where we currently are. I'm not interested in volunteering right now. You don't have to put your name on there. You don't have to put your information. Nobody's going to call you on that. That's totally fine. If you would, though, just mark that, and I'll tell you what to do with it in a second. If you're currently volunteering, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to check that box and say, I'm currently volunteering. And you may say, I want to volunteer in a different area or I want to volunteer in a new area. All that's totally fine. Check the box. You need to fill that out at that point. And then just for a second, I'd like for everybody to look at me for a minute, right? And there are some of you that are on the fringe, and you're type A personality like I am, and you're going, I kind of want to, but I don't know what this means yet. And you're like, I'm not ready to commit yet, and I'm not going to give you my social security number, right? We're not going to ask you for it, but I think that would be funny, and I would ask that question, right? So let me tell you this, right? If you're on the fringe, and you're like, I am interested, but I'm not there yet, that's totally okay. I want you to mark the I'm interested box. And then I want you to put in there your name and information. What we're doing next week is after our 9 o'clock service and after our 11 o'clock service, I'd love to meet with you. So we're going to get a bunch of you in a room together. Our campus director is going to be there. A bunch of our directors are going to be there. We're going to sit down and just answer any questions that we can about serving and give you clarity around what it means to serve and what that looks like. That's totally okay. I just need you to mark that box. I'm interested, kind of want more information. There's even a box that says undecided on where I want to serve. That's totally okay. I'd ask you to go ahead and mark that box too. And then there's those of you who are like, you know what? Forget that. I'm ready to go tomorrow and just, where do I sign up? And you want to sign that too? One of my favorites is a guy named Jonathan. He was here at 9 o'clock. He was serving in our guest services team, and he's been here about 3 weeks, and he's already jumped in, and it took him about 3 weeks to just jump on. He had a T-shirt, and he's out there shouting today doing one of these, which you're going to enjoy, and he's amazing, right? Some of you are ready to do it right now. That's great. I'd love you to mark the box and fill out your information at the top. So everybody in the room, if you would, I'd ask you to fill it out, at least one of the boxes, and put it in. And then in just a second, what I'm going to ask you to do is once you fill it out, pass it to your right. Your right. If you're like me, we'll help you out real quick. That's that direction. It's fantastic. I'm going to ask you to pass it to your right as we do that. And then one of our team members will be in contact with you, and then we'll have that meeting next week that we'd love to invite you to. Now, the last thing I want to do before we wrap up is this. Next week, as we've showed you these previews already, we're starting a brand new series called It's Just a Faith, right? Now, if you're an empty nester in the room, real quick, if you're an empty nester in the room, I want to say this to you, right? You're going to be tempted to say, well, that's just for the young families and that's not for me. And I'm going to tell you this, that's not true. In fact, a significant portion every week of this series is going to be geared to talking to you about family and what it means to serve in a family, serve your family well in the phase of life that you're in. I'm going to ask you to come, but secondly, I'm going to ask you this. Specifically, you're an empty nester. Is you know other families or you have kids or you know people who need to be here for this series. Whether they're a Christian or not a Christian, that's all okay. But you know somebody who needs to be here. So I'm going to ask you to invite people to this series if you're an empty nester, and then show up with them, and then take them to lunch afterwards. And if you're like, you know what, I can't afford to do that, let me know, and then we'll pay for the lunch afterwards. We'll figure that out. I just want you to get them here because it matters, and you have an enormous amount of influence, especially if you're an empty nester. And then for those of you who are not, if you're single, or if you are a young family, that sort of thing, the other thing is I would tell you is you, right? You know people who need to be here for this series as well. And then some of you, you're like, I don't know if I do, but you're going to go out and eat at Cracker Barrel. Nobody eats at Cracker Barrel but me. You're going to go wherever you go to eat, wherever it is, and you're going to come across people, right, this week who are going to need to be here. And I'm going to ask you to be bold and invite them and do the same thing. If you're like, hey, I want to invite them to lunch, but I don't have the money to do it, let me know. I will pay for you to take them to lunch, and I'll pay for your meal too. But I want you to get people here. Because what we're talking about over the next 3 weeks, I really believe is some of the most important content that we're going to cover this year. And it's not just for you. It's for all the people that you know that aren't believers and that need help in their family. So I'm going to ask you to do that. Here's the great line. This is super simple, and we're going to let you go. All you have to do is say this. It's like, hey, is your family perfect? No, come with me, right? Because everybody's there, right? That's all you got to do. You got to be a Christian. We all know that that's true. All right, so, hey, thanks so much for being here. I want to pray for you, and then we're going to wrap up our time. Make sure to grab hot dogs. Make sure to play some games out there, and then have fun at the Super Bowl tonight. Let me pray for us, and then we're going to head out. Father, we thank you so much for this truth. We thank you for what we really got to experience today. Thanks for letting us be able to have fun at church. And God, I pray just a couple things. I pray for the leaders in the room. I ask that you would help us to be so bold and so intentional with that principle of just serving other people and being selfless with our influence. I pray for all of us that we'd be able to apply this at work. And God, I pray for every single person in the room as well, for those people that are on the fringe, maybe not currently volunteering. God, both give us the courage and the margin to be able to do that. But at the same time, I pray that we would do that in the context of a mission that's so much bigger than ourselves and it will outlast us. Father, I pray that you would help us to do that and to do that well. And we ask that you would continue to use our church as a place in our community where people who are seeking and looking to discover faith can find a safe place to do that. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here for It's Just a Phase next week.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us online today. We hope you had a great time like we did. And if you are in the Traverse City area, we would love to see you in person. And hey, if you are a part of our community and you weren't there today, there's a great way that you can jump in. If you're not volunteering, you actually can go to volunteer@kensington.com, fill out a quick form, and then one of our staff members will get in touch with you and we can get that ball rolling. Thanks so much for partnering alongside us, and we'll see you soon.